everybody, Mike here, baseball collector, and today I'm going to do a little bit different video. I don't just collect baseball cards, which is what my channel has been mainly about, or exclusively about since I started it, but I thought I'd finally do a video about my comic book collection. I've been encouraged by several other YouTubers that I know in the baseball card community, in the card community, to do something about my comic books, mainly Ray from Philly, and I've seen Eric, Those Back Pages, do a video on his comic collection, and mine's pretty extensive, and so I thought I'd just kind of give an overview of it. If you guys want to see some other parts of it, I'd be happy to do videos on them. I just haven't because I'm just more known for my baseball card collection, but I have over 2,000 comic books total. I mainly collect two things. I collect Amazing Spider-Man, and I collect the Star Wars comics, which just started again back in 2015 when they started the new movies and kind of when Disney took them over and they became all part of the Marvel family and everything kind of got together. They started doing comics again. So I have every Star Wars comic that has been issued since 2015, including some of the old ones from the 1970s and 80s, but not very many. Most of mine are the new ones. And what's cool about comics, and then I'll tell you about my Spider-Man collection in a minute, but what's cool about comics is it's a lot like baseball cards. There are numbered parallels, there's autograph parallels, there are short prints, there are variants of the different covers by different artists, and that's who signs the comic books mainly, are the artists or the writers or different people associated with that comic. And it's a huge, huge hobby. I mean, Those Back Pages, Eric was just at New York Comic Con, and all the Comic Cons around the country are way bigger than any, I guess, baseball card show that you could go to. Now, they're not just for comics, right? I mean, Comic Cons are for all things fantasy / superhero, you name it. They've kind of become a catch-all for a lot of different genres. But comic books are a big deal, and superheroes and all that kind of stuff are a big deal. And so there's a lot of similarities to sports cards, and that's what draws me to it. Plus, since I was a kid, I've loved Spider-Man. He's my all-time favorite superhero. And, he was just a big nerd that had superpowers. So I kind of related to that. I'm a big nerd, too. And more on the big than anything. But I don't have any superpowers. And so Spider-Man for me has always been just a hero kind of thing. I've always enjoyed reading about him and collecting the comic books. So Spider-Man is currently, Amazing Spider-Man anyway, there's titles galore of Spider-Man and offshoots and different things in terms of the storyline, but Amazing Spider-Man's the one that's been around the longest since the early 60s. And there are currently 807, they're on issue number 807 for Amazing Spider-Man. My collection really focuses on issue number 100 to 807 because anything under 100 is very, very expensive. And from 100 to 807, I'm only missing 8 issues. So I have a total of 800 and something Spider-Man comics because of parallels and variants and stuff like that. But they're all over here in a case that I'm about to show you in just a second. So let me know again what else you want to see, what specific comics. I'm going to show a little bit about comic grading here in a minute because they do that too. So many parallels to sports card collecting. So let me kind of show you some general ideas of what I have and let me know what you think. Hang on. All right, so I keep my comics in this absolutely butt ugly file cabinet here. I learned this online watching a YouTube video about using file cabinets to store comic books. I thought it was great because you can use cardboard boxes. They're called long boxes in comic world, just like you do in sports cards, but I just had so many that I didn't want to keep them there. And so I found these cool magnets that have old comic book covers on them. They're little bitty, and I just put different magnets on different drawers for what's in there. Plus I labeled them, but here's the Star Wars drawer. I'll open it up. So here's all my Star Wars comics for the starting in issue number 1 right there, back in 2015. One cool thing about the Star Wars comics is that, let me try to feed back here, is they're continuing to do these awesome cover variants that look like the old time action figures back when they made the action figures. And so for each issue of Star Wars, there's an action figure variant is what they call it. And they're getting close to having like 100 of these available. And I've got all of them but one. There's one that's very, very rare, a Luke Skywalker version that I don't have. But I would love to do a video to show all of these off because I think they're really awesome. There's just so many of them with different characters from the Star Wars saga. They're just awesome and different outfits and you name it. So that's my Star Wars drawer right there. Let me shut that. And then right here starts the Amazing Spider-Man run. So in this cabinet here are all Amazing Spider-Man. The oldest issue I have is right here. It's issue number 54. So again, prior to 100, I don't have a lot, and the ones that I do have, I wouldn't call them in great condition. Just like sports cards, condition matters on comics. And so you can even get, they even have top loaders for comics. Like this one's in a top loader. This is issue number 252, which is where Spider-Man first has his black suit that he ends up becoming Venom and all sorts of things. But that was first introduced in Amazing Spider-Man in issue 252. So that's drawer number 1. Let's see if I can shut that. And then we got, let's see, there's full drawer number 2, goes all the way back. And then drawer number 3, down here at the bottom. So, like I said earlier, let's see if I can get to it. I'm messing all this up. So here's issue number 800. That was a big deal when they reached 800 recently. And then there's parallels to that. So you got another cover here, number 800, and it says variant edition on the top. There's another 800 variant cover. I think there's, I don't know, 20 or so variant covers just for number 800. So there's a general overview. I have a lot more comics in general with my son. He collects them too. And so Walking Dead and comic books, all sorts of other Spider-Man titles that are not in this room. They're in upstairs in his room. So let me talk to you guys a little bit about comic grading. Hang on one second. All right, so this is the first time I'm ever shooting comics like this. So getting the lighting right and doing it right, it's really difficult because comics are so much larger than baseball cards. So please bear with me as I go through this. But over here, I'm going to show you 3 different comics that I have that are graded. I have several more, but these will just show you the different things that are kind of going on. So you've got CGC is the main company that does comic books. And that stands for Certified Guarantee Company is the name of that company. There's several others, but just like PSA, they're kind of the main one that does comics. And so what you see is the flip at the top, and there's a numeric grade on the left. The numeric grades go 1 to 10, and when you get, you know, up higher numbers, 8s and 9s, they move at 0.2 decimals per grade scale. So there's a 9.8, a 9.6, a 9.4, etc. And so basically you can really tell how the quality of comic. 9.8 is considered kind of gem mint on a comic book. And at the top it tells you what the comic is, in this case Star Wars number 4, when it was issued, who it was issued by, Marvel Comics, June of 2015 is when this comic came out. It's the Boba Fett variant cover, so that's over here on the left. And then you've got all the artist information. You've got who wrote the story, who did the art inside the comic book, who made the cover, and then it's got a serial number right here in the middle. And over on the right, it talks about if there's anything kind of unusual about this comic book. And in this case, you could only buy it on the artist who made the cover. His name's John Tyler Christopher. You could only buy it on his website. And so it says over here, JohnTylerChristopher.com exclusive. So there's the comic itself. Sorry about the glare, but this is a pretty rare comic, this Boba Fett. A couple $100 for this, I would think. So moving over here, next comic that I'm going to show you guys is an Amazing Spider-Man number 64. And you can see at the top, this is an 8.5, which is okay. This card is from 1968, so it's, 50 years old, this comic book. And it's an 8.5, which is okay. It tells you it was written by Stan Lee. John Romita did the cover, and Romita, Heck, and Esposito all did the art on the inside. So on the right, you can see that it has a vulture appearance. So that's who is the enemy of Spider-Man in this one. And what they also do is right here in the center on both, you can, if you go back and look at the other one, it tells you what color the pages are inside. Are they, really nasty looking and brown, or are they white to off-white? That white to off-white is considered normal. And they also count the pages to make sure that it's a complete book before they look for restoration things. They're doing a whole lot to authenticate the book as well as grade it. They're looking for, is it missing a staple or any kind of flaw that could be with the book. They're going to look for it, and they will put it on the flip when they grade it. So there's a vintage Spider-Man to kind of show you versus compared to a modern comic. And then just like other grading companies for sports cards, comic books also have autographs. And if you get somebody to sign it, in this case, this is signed by Stan Lee, who, if you don't know who Stan Lee is, we need to talk, because he is the master of all Marvel things. He is still alive, 90-something years old. But this is an Amazing Spider-Man number 1. Now, what they also do is they will basically reboot series. So there have been, besides the Amazing Spider-Man number 1 back in the 60s, there have probably been 4 or 5 different reboots of Amazing Spider-Man. And every time they do that, they restart with number 1. And that's actually just a money grab by Marvel, because number 1's, supposed to be the best comic. But this is a special cover, and in this case, somebody got Stan Lee to sign it. And what they did was they took it to SGC, or sent it to SGC, and SGC, with the yellow flip that you see there, it's called SGC Signature Series, and they are authenticating the autograph and grading the comic book. It even tells, in this case, when it was signed. Somebody from CGC was there to witness the signature on August 1st, 2015. And so it still gives you all the information about the comic and, what kind of grade it is. But it's a grade, I think, of the autograph, not of the comic itself. But I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe some other comic expert can tell me. But there's the comic there, full kind of look at it, signed there by Stan Lee. So as I scan back here, there's kind of some graded comics for you to check out in my collection. I got several more, but this is just giving you an idea of what comic grading is like. And there you go. So if you have any questions, let me know. Let me know what else you want to think. I appreciate everybody watching. I hope you all have a good night, and keep collecting.